Lesson 2, Part 5, Types of Studies. There are two main types of studies for collecting data. Controlled experiment. Assign people or things to groups and apply some treatment to one of the groups while the other group does not receive the treatment. Observational studies. We measure or survey members of a sample without trying to affect them. Let's look closer at an experiment. The purpose of an experiment is to investigate the relationship between two variables. When one variable causes changes in another, we call the first variable the explanatory variable. The affected variable is called the response variable. In a randomized experiment, the researcher manipulates values of the explanatory variable and measures the resulting changes in the response variable. The different values of the explanatory variable are called treatments. Subjects are randomly assigned to one of at least two groups. The treatment group receives an active treatment, a treatment that influences the response variable. The control group receives a placebo treatment, a treatment that cannot influence the response variable. The purpose of the placebo treatment is to counter the power of suggestion. Blinding in a randomized experiment also helps counter effects caused by the power of suggestion. When a person involved in a research study is blinded, he does not know who is receiving the active treatments and who is receiving the placebo treatment. A double-blind experiment is one in which both the subjects and the researchers are blinded. Here's an example of an experiment. Researchers want to investigate whether taking aspirin regularly reduces the risk of heart attack. 400 men between the ages of 50 and 84 are recruited as participants. The men are divided randomly into two groups. One group will take aspirin, and the other group will take a placebo. Each man takes one pill each day for 3 years, but he does not know whether he is taking aspirin or the placebo. At the end of the study, researchers count the number of men in each group who had heart attacks. Identify the following. Remember that you can pause before I reveal each answer. What is the population? The population is all men aged 50 to 84. What is the sample? The sample are the 400 recruited participants. What are the experimental units? Each individual man in the study is an experimental unit. What is the explanatory variable? The explanatory variable is the oral medication. Remember, the explanatory variable is what is supposed to affect the response variable. What is the response variable? Whether a subject had a heart attack. What are the treatments? The treatments are aspirin and placebo. Remember that treatments are the values of the explanatory variable. Observational study involves collecting data without applying any kind of treatment. For example, a study took a random sample of adults and asked them about their bedtime habits. The data showed that people who drank a cup of tea before bedtime were more likely to go to sleep earlier than those who didn't drink tea. Now we'll look at more examples and determine whether we see an experiment or an observational study. These examples were taken from khanacademy.org. Example 3. A study took a group of adults and randomly divided them into two groups. One group was told to drink tea every night for a week, while the other group was told not to drink tea that week. Researchers then compared when each group fell asleep. Is this an experiment or an observational study? Are the researchers involved in affecting the outcomes? Yes, the researchers have told each person in each group what to do during the experiment. So they are treating the subjects. So this is an example of an experiment. Example 4. A study randomly assigned volunteers to one of two groups. One group was directed to use social media sites as they usually do. One group was blocked from social media sites. The researchers looked at which group tended to be happier. Would this be an example of an experiment or an observational study? Are the researchers involved in affecting the outcomes? Yes. Since the researchers are directing what is going to happen to the subjects in each group, this is an experiment. Example 5. Another study took a random sample of people and examined their social media habits. Each person was classified as either a light, moderate, or heavy social media user. The researchers looked at which groups tended to be happier. Is this an example of an experiment or an observational study? Are the researchers directing the behavior of the subjects in any way, or are they merely observing the behavior of the subjects? This is an example of an observational study. Notice that the researchers don't have anything to do with the choices or the behavior of the subjects in the study. They're just observing the normal behavior of each person. That concludes part 5 of lesson 2.